I think it's important in parenting and work. Take a second, breathe through it, think a minute, and figure out what's the best way I handle this. How am I going to make this situation, which I have no control over, how am I going to make my response to it stronger and help the situation, help me heal from it?
Welcome back to How Are You Arriving? Today begins a 4-part series called The Resilience Factor. What does it really mean to be resilient? In the next 4 episodes, we'll dive into what resilience looks like in everyday life, in our relationships, in the middle of internal obstacles, and during big transitions. And then we'll examine the growth that comes after the hardship and struggle. You'll hear real stories and practical tools, of course, because I'm always about the tools, that you can apply in your own life. So subscribe now and join me as we explore how resilience helps us bounce back. Welcome to How Are You Arriving? Conversations with Christina Young. After 13 years of leading weekly parenting groups, I'm bringing my favorite question to the mic. How are you arriving? These honest conversations go beyond small talk into family dynamics, parenting, wellness, tough decisions, aging, and what it means to live authentically. If you're craving real talk with heart, you're in the right place. Welcome back to How Are We Arriving? I am thrilled with my guest today. Her name is Kristen Mullen, and Kristen is here to talk with me about resilience. I'm deep in the middle of my series on resilience here, and there's a couple things I want you to know about Kristen before we dive in here together. So Kristen Ruth Mullen is a seasoned school psychologist who specializes in servicing students struggling with trauma and emotional regulation. She's been at this for more than 20 years. She has a remarkable calm and also expertise that I think probably lends just so much peace to so many of the families that she works with. Personally, our kids have known each other for years. I'm super lucky that Kristen has a place down here in Miami, so I get to spend time with her. And I'm just thrilled that you've made time in your schedule to be here today. So thank you so much, Kristen.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
So we're talking about resilience, and I want to start by just sort of defining resilience as the capacity to adapt well in the face of adversity, stress, or significant challenges. Does that sound right?
Yes, completely.
Okay. And then there's the little flavor of like the ability to bounce back. I like
Exactly.
that part of resilience as well. So I want to just start, and I'm going to remind you sort of to keep your mom hat on, your psychologist hat on, your friend, wife, everything else, all the other things that you do, those hats on all at the same time. But looking back, what challenge shaped you in ways that you didn't necessarily see coming?
So I think how you deal with things on paper as a professional is very different than how you deal with it when it's hit with you personally as a parent.
For sure.
And obviously we all go through as our children age. I am lucky to have young adult children who are 26, 24, and 21. And we went through this journey, and it wasn't always a smooth ride, so to speak.
No?
No,
What's
it never
wrong with you,
is.
Kristen?
Honestly, it never is. I think about. So when I think about things, like obviously I really had to struggle with resiliency with certain aspects of things with my children. But I think when you think and you really step back and look at like what are, I call them big problem versus small problem.
Yes.
And I was definitely shot with a big problem. Like I think when any of your children or your husband or yourself go through a really significant health issue that kind of comes out of nowhere, it will rock your world, and it will cause you, first of all, you don't have time to process, which I think is something that's really important.
Yes.
As a parent,
Yes.
as a psychologist, as a mother. So being thrown into that mode, I think I was, we got information from a doctor that was, very significant. We had to, I like to keep, I spoke with Christina earlier, some anonymity because it's not my story to tell.
Yeah.
However, when it occurred, it was my story because I'm the one that had to shape it and frame it and present it.
All in real time without any time
you
to
know
reflect.
what? Yes, not able to reflect. So I think, as a person, when you're given some like horrible news, you react viscerally. Like literally, I think I went to the bathroom and I vomited. I definitely did. And I wanted to get on the phone. I wanted help. I wanted, like, as I talk about when I worked with putting my psychology hat, who are the people that can support you? I wanted those people around me. And I had a husband who was with me, and it's interesting because he was in the same process with me, but he handled it so very differently.
I'm sure.
And that is so different and difficult, and I couldn't understand it. But what I had to do at that moment was go into the room and present things like it was going to be okay. Like I did have to, like, you had to go there first, but it was going to be a challenge, and we had some things to do or it wouldn't have been okay.
Right.
And
you had to immediately find resilience in the moment and presenting. Like, we're okay here.
Yeah.
Which is often what you have to do as a mom.
As a mom. And I remember my husband had to say to me, "You can't go in there like this." And my son was still asleep, and I had to just go. I just did some deep breathing. I mean, I really, when I work with clients and as a mother, sometimes the only thing you can do is just walk outside and breathe. And I remember doing that. Okay, you can handle this. This is what you have to do. And I did handle it. And just, I handled it. I think now we can talk about it, and definitely he was able to sense like my stress level. However, I think after, now we can talk about it, and not necessarily, we still don't laugh about it by any stretch of the imagination, but it was something that I think all parents have to face. I think it's important for them to understand that moms and dads, when you're faced with this challenge, to try to take a deep breath, figure out your plans, who you're going to see, talk to as many people as you can, and really try to get a decisive plan. I remember talking to a doctor, and it was like kind of a friend doctor. And I said, "Oh my God, this is just such a huge fish to fry." And he goes, "Well, you got to get your people to help you get the oil out and put that fish on the flat because you got to do this.
You got to do this." Yeah.
And it really woke me up, and I was like, okay, now I'm in research mode. Now I'm in this. Now I'm talking to people and getting information. I think information is power in this situation. And then it comes to how you present something that's going to be life-changing for your child in a sense. And
because they're going to follow your lead.
Exactly. And I really firmly believe that you gotta make lemonade out of lemons. And in life, things happen that you're not accustomed to, you're not ready for, and they're out of your control. The only thing you can control is how you deal with it.
Yeah.
So taking that, I'm a big list creator. I'm a big 3 things person. I do it in my practice, and I did it as a parent. Okay, this is what's positive. This is... And I tend to be a little bit more optimistic, and thankfully, I think my children are in many ways too, which was a great way to handle it.
That's such a blessing that that's your mindset, and maybe your default mindset.
It is. But sometimes, my husband's is not as that, so it's almost good to have that, like...
The counter.
Yes.
The yin and the yang.
The one thing I did find I like still go back to it, and I think many women in marriages can understand this. Like the nights, there was, my son had to have numerous surgeries, and there were nights, and I was so anxious, and I would feel it viscerally, and he would be sleeping like a baby, and I was like, "Oh my God!"
Your husband would,
yes,
yeah.
And I did not understand. Like,
how
I am
dare
deep breathing.
You sleep like
How
a baby?
are you? And he's like, "This situation is completely out of my control.
Wow.
There is nothing I can do about it."
Yeah.
Except for wait for it to occur. So why am I going to let? And that helped me in many ways.
Yeah.
So
that's remarkable, and I so admire that.
it was
I don't
the
have
other
that
things
skill.
he stresses about that I'm like, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
But it is
Weirdly, the place that I do have that skill is when I enter an airplane, and there's so many people I know who are terrified to fly. But that's my mind. When I take off on an airplane, I'm like, and I'm out, and people are like, "What? How are you?" And I'm like, No, I can't control anything that's about to happen to me, and therefore I slip into the deepest, most relaxed state when I'm taking off, and often fall asleep.
It is so funny because I'm the exact same way. That is something, if I'm going to go down, I always I'm in the Coors Lake can on my way. It's
already happening.
There's nothing I can do. It's funny.
So wait, Kristen, I got to unpack a couple things you
Okay.
said, because that was just a remarkable collection of thoughts that you just shared. But so I want to start with, you mentioned a couple times your people and your wherewithal in the moment of crisis to be like, I need to gather my people. And
Yes.
I just want to stop and say, what a great coping mechanism. What a strength to know I'm not going to go it alone. That's not going to serve anybody.
No.
It's just smart.
I think as a professional, that has helped me so much.
Yeah.
Who are the people you can rely on?
Yeah.
Who are the people you go to? And I had that, thankfully.
Yeah.
I definitely had that. And that is a gift. Not everyone has that.
Yeah. But it's knowing your limitations in that setting and being aware of the fact that I need to prop myself up.
Yes.
Because if I come at it with these particular limitations, which are only human and normal, it's probably not going to be enough to surmount this whole situation. And so I'm going to prop myself up, and I know I can lean on this person and this person. And I always talk about in my groups, the smartest people I know are the ones who know how to ask for help.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. The one thing I will say that was difficult at the time is the people who I actually often asked, I did not want them to be upset and sad. I needed them to be strong. And they had to go through that.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So I was obviously my mother is alive and she's lovely and fabulous. But she was so grief-stricken that I was like, get yourself together. I need you to do this, And,
get your shit together, Mom.
Exactly. This is not what I need from you. That's what I want to be doing,
Yeah.
But then she was able to do that, and she was great. And my mother-in-law, and, I am very blessed that my husband has a lot of sisters. It tended to be family, which for me, it doesn't always have to be, and a very good friend.
Yeah.
I think it's different for all people.
Yeah.
But without a doubt, one of the first questions I ask my clients, and I have my kids work out as well, who can you go to? Who can help you with this besides me?
It's so nice, and it's such a nice thing to do preemptively, proactively, before whatever the next crisis is going to be. It's
true.
Keep in mind that these are your go-to people who've proven to be reliable in the past, and just metaphorically, tuck them in your back pocket.
Without a doubt.
They're with you wherever you're going to go, and it's such a strength to know you can lean on people like that.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so helpful.
I also just want to stay with that idea of, in real time, in the moment of managing this health crisis, you somehow had to, I imagine, compartmentalize.
Oh, without a doubt, yes.
These are my big, huge, ginormous, appropriate feelings, but I need to put a lid on them.
Yes.
Because now I have to lead with composure and grace, and I'm okay. We're all okay.
Yes. And I think as a parent, obviously other things have happened. And I tend to sometimes be like, okay, we're going to get through. This is how we're going to do it. And as a professional, that's helped me. Now I'll say, okay, you didn't get the job you wanted to get. You didn't get your first choice to college. I'm going to let you, I'm going to let you grieve it for a little bit. It stinks. It's, you can wallow in it, and then tomorrow we make a plan. And that's what I've learned. I don't think I did that as much. My son was much younger. I think it's important to point out. And I really had to make that plan. But I think that owning it and feeling it is a big piece that will help you later be a little reflective.
Definitely. I call it in my work sitting in the muck.
Yes.
Don't rush them through the muck. Everybody's got to have permission to sit in the muck
in the
for a
muck.
little bit and just let them know, like, I'm okay sitting in the muck with you. I'm not scared of it.
Yeah.
I can hang out in the muck with you for a little bit. But then also as the adult in this situation, knowing when you've hung around in the muck long enough.
Yeah.
And then time to move to action.
It's time to move on. I think that's a big piece. I didn't feel like I had a lot of time to sit in the muck.
It doesn't sound like it. Yeah.
And then, then I was able to, like, after you do one thing and then you have some time. And so I do feel like I was able to process. And I think sometimes I'm again speaking to like a pretty significant health crisis. I think when you spend time and you see how other people struggle and suffer, you're like, okay, you know what? I can take this. Yeah. And I think when I think about, like, in general parenting, there's so many things that come up. And like just talking about in our work, like horrible things happen and they happen to anybody. And like I said, you don't have an option and that's completely out of your control. But when you sit back and realize it, how I approach it is in my control.
Yes.
And that's the only thing.
Yes.
So to move forward and make, and like I said, we're on the other side. We still there's still stuff. But I think in general, I don't see the way I handled it. I really am so proud of myself.
Oh, I was going to ask
you. I am very
hope
proud
you
of myself.
You should
because
be.
I mean, in some ways, I wish I would have been a little bit more, but I owned it and I always took the best. I think, like, when you talk about resilience, I'm going to wing back into, like, professional life. What are 3 things you learned? Like, what are 3 positives you have? Okay. So one, I know something about myself. I have a roadmap of things I have to check and things that could go wrong, and I can watch those. Like going through the positives. Like, I am not, what I will say, I go back. When parents have children that are really struggling and are in pain, that is very hard.
Witness.
It's very hard to witness as a mom.
Very.
I mean, I go back to that terms endearment scene, like, oh my God, I'm dating myself, but I like literally can feel that viscerally because when your child is in pain, like, you would take their place in a minute.
100%.
And I think that is a really hard place, but we luckily didn't have a lot of that experience. It was short-lived and so on and so forth. I know people who have chronic diseases and it's just horrific. And I have such empathy.
So let me ask you this, Kristen. How, when you reflect upon this period of your life, how do you think it changed you? How are you today because of that whole, and I know it's not over, it's...
No, I think,
But what are the ways that it changed you?
It made me really kind of laugh at all the little plans and the thoughts. Like, I know I listened to a podcast of, like, you're traveling to Rome and then you end up here. Like,
in Holland.
It just made me realize, like, who am I trying to kid?
Yeah.
This is not, I don't have the roadmap. This is what I'd like to have happen, but it's not what's going to happen.
No. And I think that's one of the most humbling early lessons in parenting.
Without
it's
a
like,
doubt.
you don't get to control much here at all.
No, not at all.
Get used to it.
Not at all.
Relinquish control quickly and you'll be calmer.
And I do think, like, I handle things poorly a lot of times, usually like smaller instances. And I think teaching resilience, I can say the next day, you know what? I really handled that poorly. I overreacted. I said things I shouldn't have said, but that's what I was feeling at the time. I've had time to process this and think about it. And I'm sorry, I should not have blurted those things out. That is a big piece of resiliency that I have learned. And I constantly make mistakes. So
maybe one of the strengths is in reflecting and then repairing.
Yes, I think that's a big piece.
Yeah.
It's a better, like, I know you work with a ton of teens. It's easier to do when your kids are older. It's not as easy to do when they're younger. Like, and this kind of occurred, my kids were young. Speaking to my other children, like, they were upset that I maybe didn't I kept some things, like, which I thought at the time was the best possible solution. But I mean, you have 2 girls. I have a daughter who is so savvy and on everything and listening at a door. And, like, there's really, when you have little kids around, it's hard to get privacy. They'll be at the door.
Oh, yeah, always.
And if I would have a call from a physician, and we traveled out of state for treatment, and so they had to come and visit, and I think she would say I should have been more open, but at that time I felt it was important to protect them, and I still will stand by that. But it's often the children that are not as involved that pay the price.
So true on so many levels.
Yes.
And you and I both have kids the same age, and I find one of the things happening now is I'm getting a little bit of commentary, sometimes unsolicited, about choices we've made in our parenting. And I mostly listen and like, you know what? Thanks for your input. And I also am thinking, and when you're a parent, you'll see it all very differently. But you have the pleasure and the freedom right now of being a young 20-something without any children. So you're seeing it through that view.
Yes. I always say, like, this came with no manual.
Yeah.
I talk to my
We were
kids.
shooting from the hip
Yes.
the whole way through.
Yes. And I think like that's where, obviously we talk about our professions, like we've learned from our clients and we've learned through school. I always try to think about, okay, what I'm feeling and why I'm feeling it, using it as an I statement. It's better than kind of attacking. And that's helpful. But it wasn't always used because, I think sometimes you're like,
Yeah.
So it is funny because my kids will come back and say things to me and I'm like, you know what? I really, at that point in time, I did the best I could.
And that's the answer for everything always.
Yes.
I did the best that I could do. And now this is a Maya Angelou quote I think about. Like, I did the best, and when I know better, I do better.
That's it. I totally agree.
Yeah, but like that, I never woke up on any given morning and said, "Let me see how I can mess up my kid today."
Oh yeah, my husband says all the time. I didn't wake up to say I was going to yell at you all day. I did not.
It wasn't my plan.
We're on the same team.
Yeah.
We just want the best for you.
Yeah.
So
I want to ask you a little bit about the kids that you work with.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit in general about those kids, that population, in what ways you serve them.
So I think I typically tend to work with kids who've experienced more significant trauma, who are they're facing more challenges in schools or a juvenile detention facility, or they've made some choices that have not worked out for them. So, and they don't have a lot of supports. So I think for the population I serve, I try to listen. There is a lot to unpack in terms of trauma. I don't necessarily like to do that. Like, I work in a school-based setting. So unpacking that is something I like to do with someone else because it's not great to unpack that at school.
Yeah. So are you seeing the kids in between math and spelling?
Yeah, like sometimes during a break or Yeah, definitely. Like, okay.
So you definitely can't be unpacking things.
But sometimes kids, like, especially if they can't help it. So I'm like, okay, let's just discuss this. The big piece I like to do is make a plan. I like to make short-term and long-term goals. So, okay, how are we going to handle this? What are we going to do? What are your strengths? I usually start with, tell me 3 things that are positive that have happened.
Love it.
In the last week. I'm a big 3 things. Everything is
like
3s.
It. That's because our human brains are really comfortable with the number 3. I've read that somewhere.
I do it all the time. I love it.
I love the idea of starting with strengths. I do the same thing with my clients. I try, no matter what they're in for, I try to start with, okay, but tell me what went well since the last time we talked. Yes. And just trying to help them see, like, you do have strengths that you're working from.
Oh,
right?
without a doubt. Yeah. And I do, like, I've done so many different things, but in terms I do a lot of intellectual testing. So we'll look for learning disabilities, autism spectrum disorder. Unfortunately, we're getting into a lot of like major mental health, and that's where one of my biggest challenges, like the major depression, like just. It's very
Are you
very
screening
hard.
For that during these brief
No,
meetings?
but I'll see students that I'm like, oh my God, like you can see
all
this
the
has to,
signs.
yeah. And so that's when I need extra support for sure right away.
Yeah.
But it's hard to get positives out. But if you can say, what are 3 things if you can do tomorrow? Maybe you only do one of them. Mm-hmm. But will make you feel a little better about yourself.
Mm-hmm. It makes me think about, again, that sense of agency. And
Yes.
when we feel like we have a sense of agency over our own life,
Yes.
so all of a sudden we're back in it and we're like, okay, wait, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah.
There's something that I can do that might make me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I want to ask you what you think about resiliency, and do you think it's innate? Is it learned? Is it a combination? How do we get it?
It's so funny you asked this, and I thought about this. And of course, you think about certain cases, which obviously I can't talk about, but I can talk generally.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to me. Some of the students I've seen have really are in foster care or have had such significant traumas. Other students, like, it's a trauma, without a doubt. It's a terrible thing that happened, but they can't move past it. And they really don't want to move past it. So trying to and those are the kids that I really don't see move as quickly or are as successful. Now, the other student who's able to adapt, there are other issues that can come out that need to be addressed through someone that's obviously very trained to dig up it and have them go through the muck in a sense.
I want to talk to you about an organization I really admire here in Miami. If you're looking for a way to make a real difference, LEAP helps formerly incarcerated women, many of them moms, rebuild their lives through in-prison education, safe transitional housing, and job training. Learn more at leapforladies.org and be a part of a woman's second chance. But is there something you see? Is there some thread that you could draw through the ones that are able to surmount the trauma versus the ones that are not? And I know a lot of it is biological inherent stuff.
Yeah.
But what would you call it? The thing that allows some to flourish and others not?
I think it goes back to having that type of mindset. Are you a positive or are you a negative person? Are you seeing the glass as half empty or the glass as half full? I always try to talk to kids about that.
Yep.
Like, I know, I think especially now, we could talk forever about like this aspect and the impact of social media.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not real world, okay? It's just not the real world. Like, so I talk a lot about what brings you joy. Let's be simple. What brings you joy? Forget about what's happened. I would say a lot of times kids will talk about something that has to do with outside. Playing sports is one. And being outside, being free, being in like by the ocean or by the mountains or just doing something is very helpful.
In nature.
Exactly. And off your phone is very helpful.
And they can identify that, most of the kids that you talk to.
Like, it takes some digging. Where do you find yourself? Like, because it's not playing a video game. That's just time. That's, it's fun.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say you're not having fun at it, and you may enjoy it. But where do you find yourself feeling fulfilled and relaxed?
At peace.
So, but back to your question, I would definitely say that when students come to me and are somewhat like able to think about what's going well, they have a better chance. Now, I often work with kids. It's a setting where school is always something that students go to. So doing well and feeling good about your performance is important.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you have students that are only hearing negatives.
Yes.
From a parent, from a foster parent, from this, you're so bad, you're so that. So really trying to change that mindset. And I'll work with teachers. I'm like, okay, you've told me everything that's horrible.
Yeah.
Everything. I need 3 things
that are great about
happy.
This kid.
And let's look at, like, give me their 3 strengths. Like, what do you like about them? Are they funny? Like, do they have a quick wit?
Because they can sniff it out when they're in the school building so many hours per week.
Yes.
And they can sniff it out so quickly when there are multiple adults who disapprove of them and are sending the message, you are not good enough as is. So please try to be this, this, and this, and then maybe we will approve of you. Exactly. And that's just an uphill battle.
Yes, it is. It really is.
So question, how do we teach resilience to our kids? Is there something you've done that's worked? Is there an actual concrete tactic? Is it more words of encouragement over and over again?
Okay, I can put that on 2 hats. My parenting hat, I think how I respond to challenges that I face in my own life or face, my children face. Everyone goes through the scenario. My kid didn't make this team, they didn't get the job, like we're dealing with that, or they
Got
were
dumped by the
rejected, they got
boyfriend,
jumped by
or-
and they're all tragic. They're all like, oh my God, they think it's
world
the
is
end of
over.
the world.
Yeah.
So I think how I try to get them to approach it. Okay, let's think about it. Like, honestly, it's like going back to these are the things that are going well for you. You know, this is going to be, you know, I'm thinking about a breakup. This person's lost. Okay. I understand you're really sad and it's horrible. But I promise you want someone that's going to love you for all the positive things, or you're, you know, this job, this maybe wasn't meant to be. Like, so how I mirror it, I think helps teach. Now, not to say that I don't always handle it well, like, because if my kid wasn't prepared for something, I'll be like, well,
You got what you deserve.
Think about it here. So I think even little things that we find frustrating in our lives as parents when your kids are little, like, okay, I'm really upset about this, but I'm going to do this and this and this. Like, that helps teach. Now, when I work with kids, I will help outline. Because they listen to me much more than my children will. Like, by the way,
Of course.
my kids are not going to, they'll be like, don't try and put me in your chair.
Yeah.
Even my husband will be like, oh my God, what do you?
Yeah.
So
take that therapist hat off, Mom.
Yes. When I put the therapist hat on, I can and go through and like, okay, I always ask, all right, I want you to be honest with me and tell me, is this a big problem or a small problem?
I like that. That's such a nice framework
Yes.
to start with.
And then not to say it's not a problem.
Yeah.
But big problems are problems that money, influence, prestige, nothing, that's not going to solve it. Okay. There's things that you have to address right away that could be catastrophic. Those are big problems.
And to be clear, most of our problems are not those.
Exactly.
Most, not all. We all
Yes.
stand in those terrifying shoes on occasion, but most fall into the smaller
Small problems.
category. Yeah.
So
And just asking a kid to step back a little and get the perspective of like, oh, wait, you mean before we go and try and solve it or talk about all my feelings pertaining to it, we're first going to categorize it. I love that.
I had somebody say to me, and it was just so funny, I guess it's small, but it's big to me. I'm like, okay, I get that it's big to you.
I'm not here to diminish.
Okay, I want you to feel it, but I want you to think about, like, you will survive this. How are we going to handle it?
Yeah.
How are we going to tackle
Yeah.
it? Let's control that.
Yeah. But first, let's identify it
I
as
know.
small so that we can recognize whether our feelings and reactions are appropriate
Exactly.
or perhaps dramatic and inappropriate.
Exactly.
Yeah. Not exactly the words I would use with the
With
kid,
it, yes.
but there are so many moments, especially in parenting, but certainly in working with clients, where I'm like, okay, this could not be a more inappropriate response to the situation.
Oh, I know. You're like, okay, let's think what we could have done differently.
Yes.
I say that all the time.
Yes.
What do you think would have been a better now that you can
Yes.
reflect?
Yes.
And how...
And I think there's a lot of skill building in that tactic.
Well, without a doubt. And then, but to get that, I'm so great. I mean, working with kids, and I will say I'm very blessed with working with kids one-on-one. And I know it's different when you have peers and there's posturing for other peers in the classroom. And, you know, so.
Let's talk about a different angle of resilience here, Kristen. What do you say to yourself in the middle of tackling a challenge? I think sometimes adults have a certain set of coping thoughts that they automatically resort to without even knowing it. And I try to remind parents I work with, just narrate aloud the coping thoughts you're using when your kids are in the car and let them hear, like, oh, we're sitting in this traffic, we're late for the dentist appointment, and like, here's all the things that I'm saying to myself internally right now. I'm going to say them externally so I can model for you, right?
Yeah, that's what I definitely...
What are some of the thoughts, though, for you personally, when you're faced with a challenge, there's some obstacle, what do you say to yourself?
So I try to think about, like, just right, like, you know, I like to be busy, and that actually could be a problem. You know what I mean? I think, like, it allows me not to spend time to reflect.
Right.
So I have been trying the last couple of weeks. I've really not
You've been
started.
flirting with just being still?
Yes, and reading. And
How's that going?
I get really bored. I'm going to be honest. And then I like to do physical things. But I know at this point in my life, I know what brings me joy. I think that, it's funny, I say this to my kids. We don't really grow or change in a comfortable setting. So it's important.
Can you say that one more time?
We don't really grow and change in a comfortable setting.
That is so true.
We need to live a little bit in the uncomfort.
Yeah.
I like to work with the same people, and like that in many ways stifles my creativity, what I could be doing, what I would like to do, how I could help others. And that often when I sit back and think about what do I want to do, because it's not as comfortable, I'm not used to it. It's a different set of people, students, parents, whatever. Am I not doing this because it's going to be harder? And that is really important for me to reflect on.
I love that. And I think about the same thing quite often. And I think about, are you choosing to take the risk, or are you choosing to take the very comfortable path?
Yes.
And obviously it depends on the amount of sleep I've had and all the other variables in life. But it is remarkable what happens inside of our head when we're cognizant of the fact that we're taking the more challenging path. We're opting into the risk.
Without a doubt.
There's stuff that happens in our head that feels a little different.
Well, there's one thing I think about. So we both we live on the East Coast now. Both of us have our kids, and I think what was going to be best for my kids was to go far away. And my daughter was applying to schools in California, and she was really struggling. I think as parents of teens, it's amazing to see the growth from sophomore year, junior to senior year, and senior year to college. And you're applying to college and thinking about it junior to senior year. And, oh my God, no, I can't, it's too far, like this isn't, I need the, and a lot of times I say, what is the worst thing? I say this with my kids and with people, what is the worst thing that will happen if you do this?
I love this. Tell me more. I love
say
this
it all the
tactic.
time. What is the worst thing that's going to happen? I need you to think about it, and I need you to write it down. I need you to do it. What is it? And then we go through. What happens if something goes wrong? Well, we can do this or this or that. What happens if I hate it? Well, you can come home. What happens? Why is it bad if you come home? Why do you care what others perceive? Like, I think that's a big piece of parenting that I've really tried to instill in my kids. And they actually teach me a lot because they're probably better at it than I am. But
I want to stay with this for a second. This tactic of forcing people to imagine the worst case scenario.
With anxiety, it's huge.
It's so counterintuitive, but there's actually great research that tells us it's the smartest thing to do because it gives us an awareness that we actually have the tools to manage the worst case scenario. And we tell ourselves a story of like, I'll never be able to manage it and I'll go down with that worst case. And most of the time, again, there's extreme examples, but most of the time when we force someone to talk through, like you're saying, but what are you imagining the worst case? For every one that they're imagining, you're like, hold on, here's the tool for that one. And here's the tool for that one. And
that's it.
You're okay.
You've got it.
Yeah.
And I think when in my work, I'll have people and they go through that. I'm like, okay, I really don't think that's going to happen. But okay, if it did happen, right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But some people need to flesh out the like crazy 1 in a million worst case. Exactly. But then you watch their anxiety go down.
That's
right?
it. It's huge. I think that's a huge tactic. I think it's very helpful.
Yeah. Different question, again, still sort of poking at resilience from all these different angles. Are you in the habit now as an adult of building in time for reflection, setting aside time to mark growth in yourself?
Oh, my husband does this so well. Honestly, I think now I have a little bit more time and I am able to do that. I'm able to, and I think being an empty nester, and I've been an empty nester for now, this is my third year. It was a really hard thing for me. It really was. I mean, there was a lot of positives about it. You know, to make dinner, there's this freedom, but I really feel like being a mom was I'm still a mom, obviously, but being a day-to-day mom where I'm managing aspects of life and making dinner and making this and that. And I enjoy that. And it's not everyone does, but for me, I did enjoy, I like having my privacy, but I did enjoy that aspect. So that was a transition And I really let myself sit in that muck for a little bit and reflect on it. I think I need to do it more because I do think that's where change happens, in the quiet.
I agree. It's in the self-reflection of
It
like,
is.
I'm stepping off the treadmill and I'm just going to stop and ask myself to observe, how did that go? How did this go? Where were my strengths? Where were my needs? What do I want to tweak? What do I want to change? And then coming back onto the treadmill, but like bringing all of that with you. I do think that's where
Yeah,
all the change happens.
I agree. I think,
But can we talk about the empty nest thing for a moment?
oh, sure.
Because
I
I
love it.
know a lot of my listeners struggle so much with either anticipating the empty nest, they're still mothering on a daily basis, or they've just stepped into the empty nest. And when I think about the empty nest, I think about the question of mattering. And all of the ways that we feel like we matter when the kids are home and we're very busy meeting needs and schedules and all of that. And then all of a sudden they're gone and there's just an awful lot of time.
There's a lot of time, which is something that I never had. So that to me, it was a little bit difficult. And what I did do is I poured myself in. I was like, I will work more. I will do that. But that's not always the answer.
I thought you were saying I poured myself another glass of
No,
water.
oh no, that too. That I learned
I was
the
like, that's
first
a
year.
different
That's a
podcast.
different podcast. No, not to say that.
You poured
But
yourself into your work because-
well, you're done. At
well,
the end
this
of the
is-
day, my husband and I, here we are in Miami. I actually really prepared for empty nesting,
How
which
did you
I think is
prepare,
important.
Kristen? Tell us the recipe.
So, my kids are a little spaced out. So I had 2 kids just graduating from college and one going. So I made trips. I did, and not everybody, like, I would go to New York, which wasn't far from where we both are from, Greenwich. And I would see my daughter, and I made like walks with friends, lunch dates or dinner dates. I did transition from working in a brick and mortar to working completely like remotely, which was very different for me. Being at home was very different. I got another dog. My dog passed away, and I was like, I'm not getting a dog, but I got a dog. So
Always the right decision to get another dog.
That's it. I think then we came to Miami, it's so lovely. It's so beautiful here. But I would say that being outside helped me. And I didn't have my community, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I did have time to reflect and to think about. And I think it's super important to be able to be by yourself and to be happy by yourself.
That is huge.
It's
Tell us
hard.
more about that, because I know so many people who struggle with that.
I think, it's sometimes important to really think about the things you did right and to feel good about it. And we don't, as mothers and as wives, what you think always about, well, I didn't do this, I didn't handle this, what did I do right? I think too, I talk to my kids all the time, I get a lot of great feedback from them being awesome adults. It's just a fun kind of phase we're in. I think that's something for your listeners too, as parents. It's really fun to have adult kids.
And it's really fun when my adult kids run into your
I
adult
know.
kids.
It's so much fun.
And then we get a little selfie, we get a little story like, oh my gosh, guess who I ran into?
Yeah.
And then you're like, wow, you're doing it. You're doing that thing called adulting. You're just out in the world doing your thing.
Exactly.
And it's going well. And it feels so full circle, right?
And I think as a mom, you have to, that's like a little win you have. We so often, I think about it all the time. I'll do a little story. And I really made him stop and think. My husband, we had Hurricane Aaron on the East Coast. And we have surfers in our family. And my husband went down a little bit later. Patrick had come back. Peter had been there. And they were like, Mom, we were in over skis. The water was rough. I'm like, oh my God, thank God I wasn't there, blah, blah, blah. So my husband, who loves to surf, who's hot my boys, he goes down. So he's surfing. He's had a great time, but it is really kind of like that murky, choppy, horrible, terrible. You shouldn't be in the water. And he's walking back on the beach with his board because he had drifted. And he sees 2 women frantic. And he sees a young boy in the water, and he's about to hit the rocks.
Oh, gosh.
And the jetties. And He is in a wetsuit, which makes you a little bit more poignant.
Yep.
He leaves the board because I was like, take the board. The board always is helpful. But it was in that really horrible currenty. Anyway. And to make a long story short, he saved this little boy's life. He pulled this person
my
out.
Goodness.
And he tells it very nonchalantly. And people...
wow.
people who were there, this is... someone actually wrote a little editorial about it.
Oh,
and it is a beautiful piece because,
that's amazing.
you know, I think what would have happened is the mom would have gone in and like it was not,
bad.
My husband was a lifeguard also. I did not say, he's
Okay.
in the ocean. So he knows. And he said it was very instinctual. His hands went, he grabbed this kid, and then he was like, we're going to go under now. And like, he knows and was
my
able to
God.
talk him through it. And I learned much more from the article because my husband's really humble and doesn't say much about it, but
that's incredible.
I made him stop and say, do you understand? Like, I think going back to what we've been talking about, it is important to reflect. You were put there. Like, I mean, sometimes as a parent, I know everyone who's listening has experienced, like, there's some divine interaction. There's something that's going on here.
Yeah.
You weren't supposed to go down. You only went down because I was like, please go.
Yes.
You were at the right place at the right time, and you changed a life.
That's remarkable.
And you know what I mean? I made him stop. I made him stop and reflect. And he's not a big reflector, and he would never tell anybody.
It's the stopping and reflecting that allows you to absorb the significance of a moment.
That is it. And we don't do that enough as moms.
We don't. Well, as humans.
And I think now being an empty nester,
you got to live
with more
time,
I'm able to do that.
Yeah.
So that's helpful.
Wow. I love that story about Peter. It's beautiful.
Yeah, he probably wouldn't like me to tell you because he's always like, don't say anything. But it was in the paper.
But I
okay.
also love stories where people are moved by their own instincts and they almost move into an automatic robotic state of like, no, this is what my body's trained to do.
Yes.
And they find themselves doing something and all of a sudden it's over and then they're like, whoa.
Well, it's funny because there was people on the beach, you know, obviously people, you know, it was it was just so crazy. The hurricane was coming in, but it was sunny and the water was nuts. So somebody that he knew was like, dude, I know how old you are. What are you doing in that water?
Who do you think you are, Superman?
So anyway.
Wow. All right. Well, I could talk to you forever, Kristen.
Oh, this is fabulous.
I want to ask you a final question here. If you could leave listeners with one truth or lesson that you've learned in your lifetime about resilience and growth, whether as a mom, as a woman, as a professional, what comes to mind? Something you've learned, a takeaway about resilience?
I think it's important in parenting and work. Take a second, breathe through it, think a minute, and figure out what's the best way I handle this. How am I going to make this situation, which I have no control over, how am I going to make my response to it stronger and help the situation, help me heal from it? How am I going to learn something? And I think in life we don't realize that, like I said, we go back to, you don't grow, you don't change, you don't learn about yourself when everything is going great. It's
such a great reminder.
You know, it is.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the one thing I learned about parenting and about marriage, about everything, we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So just trying to have the tools that we need, the people we need, the positives.
But also maybe relinquishing control when we're supposed to relinquish control, knowing the difference.
Oh, without a doubt. That's huge. That takes a long time, too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when our kids are little, we want to control every little aspect.
Well, we slip into a false belief that we are controlling everything.
I know.
Because we're choosing what color nightgown and which spoon and which rice and like the whole, and then it's obliterated.
I remember we did a play date. My oldest was, we did a play date. He was probably like 3 or 4. But he went to this little boy's house. And I'm a school psychologist. I'm pre-reading all about academics, blah, blah, blah. This kid is in the corner reading Hardy Boys. I'm like, what? I came home, I go, he can put 2 blocks together. That's it. I'm like, we got a problem here. And that's when I should have said, okay, you know what? Love him for who he is.
Yes.
That's it. Love him for who he is. Where am I in this situation? How can I make it better?
Okay, I have to throw in before we end. This makes me think of my Riley, my 23-year-old. Who helped me with a situation very recently. She was home over Labor Day weekend, and there was something that was getting in my head, and she pulls out this quote, and I was like, who are you? She goes, Mom, comparison is the thief of joy.
It is.
It's like, you're brilliant. I don't know where you got that. That's exactly what I needed to hear in this moment. Thank you for the reminder.
I know. That is huge.
It's a big one.
It is, especially with kids and social media. I'm using that now.
Yeah.
Because it is. It is
Well,
the
and
thief
it's also
of joy.
how we can undermine ourselves as parents when we get into that comparison thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for
This was
lending your
fabulous.
time and your voice, Kristen Mullen.
It was great.
It was
Thank
fabulous.
you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of How Are You Arriving? Please follow me on Instagram at CMY Therapy. As always, like, follow, and subscribe. See you next time.